Oh, we're back. It's been a while.
I think we're on.
We're trying to look presentable here today. We both been out working.
Yes.
You probably been mowing grass, and I've been burning up the county since 8 o'clock this morning.
I'm sure you have.
In my pickup truck. Now, let me tell you something. For people, most people that probably watch this know what I drive. It's that Hemi.
Right.
You know, I call it that Hemi. That's got the topper on it with all my stuff all over it. But it likes gas.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, gas isn't cheap right now. And,
no, it's not.
So I pulled up at the gas pumps. I won't say where. It's a local gas station. And me and this old dude across the pump, we're talking about how, you know, how it stinks that the gas is so high. And well, I go in, I pay cash a lot of times. So I walk in to the store and I slap $100 bill. And I said, I don't know if this will fill it up, but here's 100. Can you turn on pump 6? And so he turns it on and I shove it in there and it's just clicking away. And I'm talking to this old dude. Well, it stops. Well, long story short, I go back in there and I get $3 back.
Oh, I'm surprised you got anything.
I got $3 back and I was happy. I got $3 back. I come out and I said, man, I got enough left over for a cold drink. And he said, I bet I got to go back in and give him some more money. He said, because I got a bigger gas tank than you. But yeah, it loves gas and I'm telling you.
Hey, speaking of that, I had somebody to ask me the other day, what type of precautions do government agencies take whenever gas is this high? I mean, do you reach out to your deputies and say, hey, let's try to watch our idling time? If you don't have to leave your car running.
Well, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of my pet peeves, and you can ask my deputies the same thing about leaving your vehicle running. If you're going to be somewhere where you need to leave it running, think of it as a 15-minute cutoff time. Which I understand, we're going to be rolling up on calls sometimes, and there's reasons why sometimes we need to leave it running. But if I pull up at the office and there's a deputy's vehicle sitting out there running, and they're inside, I'll look at my watch and I'll see, and then I'll go back out, and in 15 minutes, if they're not gone, and it's still sitting there idling, I'll say something to them. But yeah, that's it, which you know, we have to travel, we have to patrol, we have to answer calls, and we've got a big county. And normally I've got 4 or 5 deputies on a shift, and we put a lot of miles on vehicles, you know, running across the county. Not the difference between us and a police department or the highway patrol. We have to serve papers.
Right.
We have to serve warrants and subpoenas and civil papers and criminal papers. And so we run a lot. But it's little things like if you're between calls, find a place to sit stationary. You know, if like night shift, we don't serve civil papers past 10 or 11 o'clock. I'm not sure the exact time at night. Now, criminal papers, of course, we serve them all night. Arrests, but civil papers, I'll just let them know. You know, after 11 o'clock, night shift is really just answering calls or patrolling. So I always recommend find you an intersection somewhere, find you a 4-way stop, find you a central location in your zone that you're assigned to that night. Just kind of stay stationary and just watch traffic.
Well, the guy that asked me, I'm not going to mention any names, but I'm pretty sure he listens to us regular. And you know, I told him, you know, as supervisors, it is our responsibility to make sure there's not wasteful spending, I guess you could call it. A lot of people don't realize, but the average V8 engine idling is the equivalent to 33 miles a gallon. With that being said, you know, you take a lot of cops who just like to stay in their car and all day long and just let it idle, that is still burning a lot of gas. So
Yeah, and it's rough on the transmission too. And I also make that point. You know, when I worked the interstate, we sat in the medium for a long time watching traffic. And I had a mechanic. Don't know if it's true or not. He was a mechanic. And he told me it to be true, so I accepted it to be the truth. But he said a transmission won't get as hot sitting idling if you'll put it in neutral.
Really?
Yep. I mean, I've never verified that, but he told me that because those interceptors that we drove back then were bad about going through transmissions.
Oh yeah.
Those Crown Vic interceptors. And he would say, put it in neutral and set the emergency brake. If you're going to be sitting and idling for a while, it's easier on the transmission. That's what he told me. So it may totally be inaccurate. I don't know, but that's what I was told.
I could see that because I think a vehicle naturally will idle at a higher RPM in part than it will
he said something about the way the fluid moves through the transmission.
Well, that could
and
be
the difference between being in park and being in neutral. Like I said, I never verified it. I just took it to be true. So it sounded legit.
Yeah.
So that was a good practice that I started. But yeah, we're not buying motorcycles. You remember there was a past sheriff that was in office when gas got really high, and they bought some motorcycles.
4 motorcycles that were bought?
Maybe, I don't know. We've got one that was, I think, was maybe a donation or something. One of my lieutenants will drive it every now and then, but it's for parades and maybe leading a funeral procession or something like that. You know, we don't work traffic in it. We don't answer calls. Matter of fact, I think the exact words that I told him was, "You are not." What's it say? In the legal, you shall.
You shall not.
You shall not work traffic with this motorcycle. But yeah, it's it's got its place, and like I said, it's good for leading funerals and parades and stuff. You know, so. But yeah, we won't be buying motorcycles. But to answer your questions, we do take steps to minimize how much fuel we're burning.
Good.
But you have to remember, I mean, people that live out in rural parts of the community, they expect to see a deputy come down their road.
Sure.
Patrolling, you know, and so I mean, we're obligated to do that, but we are conscious of.
Do you feel that your deputies are getting out into the more rural parts?
Oh yeah,
a lot more than
we are. Yeah, we're sheriff's deputies. That's where we're obligated. I mean, every municipality in the county falls under our jurisdiction, but I mean, if you have a police department where you live, you're paying taxes for that. You're paying more taxes than what somebody out in the county is paying, and that's what you're paying for. You're paying for that public service. So we kind of let Lawrenceburg, Etheridge, Loretta, and St. Joe handle 90% of what goes on in their community. We let those police departments handle that, even though that's in our jurisdiction. Now, if they call us and need help, of course we're gonna.
Sure.
But we let the police departments patrol their. Etheridge doesn't have 24/7 coverage,
right.
just like St. Joe. Lawrenceburg and Loretta are the only two municipalities in the county that have 24/7 coverage. So when Etheridge and St. Joe, when they don't have anybody 10/8 or on duty, then we'll patrol. We'll patrol it for them.
See, that's a little taste of some of the stuff that my daddy used to tell me about. You know, in the late '60s. Well, I think either up until the late '70s or the early '80s, sheriff's office closed at 10 o'clock. Not only did they close, they didn't answer any more calls, and it may have been the late '70s. But Dad would talk about, it would be nothing, for there to be a serious violent call in Iron City, and Lawrenceburg being the only available law enforcement entity in the county, and I mean it would be nothing for them to have to go down to Iron City or the hospital to be low on blood, and next thing you know, Lawrenceburg police officers making a mad dash to Murray Regional Hospital to pick up blood and come back, and I don't know, it's them type of type of
Those are
stories. I
good
can
old
just
days.
listen to those
Can you
stories
imagine?
all day long.
Can you imagine? You know, I don't know if you know Jack Davis. Jack Davis's
Yes.
dad was Arnold Davis. He was a
Arnold.
sheriff back in the
Mm-hmm.
50s or 60s. Maybe 50s, but anyway, Jack lived in the jail, the old jail, because back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
you lived at the jail.
Right.
And it was like Mayberry, you know, you cooked for the inmates and I don't know if any of the listeners ever been to the old jail, but if you've never been to the old jail museum, you need to go take a tour and see how much it changed. But yeah, he lived there. He'll sit and tell me stories, you know, about how when he was a kid, they'd have to go in there and feed the inmates and stuff, you know. But back then there wasn't but just a handful of them
Right.
in
There wasn't nowhere near the jail population. If I want to, man, my history education is leaving me. I think Harold Brown, if my memory serves me correct and everything I was told, I think Harold Brown was the last elected sheriff to live at the jail. And I want to say, again, if I remember correctly, the county actually bought a single wide trailer and pulled it close to the old jail for the Brown family to live in. If I'm wrong about this, I hope some of the family will call and correct me on this. But I was just, hearing that story, I was just standing there going, but we're just a good old country southern.
It would have been
to pull a trailer up.
It would have been back in the late, you know, the courthouse opened in I think 74. And so it would have been around that time when they were transitioning from the old jail to the new courthouse and the new jail. Mike Reisner used to tell one of the funniest stories. He had a couple of stories that he would tell, and one of them was when when they opened up the new jail. He was I can't remember where. I can't remember if he was at the sheriff's department or the police department, but he worked for both. But him and another guy had a bet. The bet was who got to book the first person into the new jail.
Oh, really?
So when they came on shift, they were hunting somebody to arrest, and Mike told the story that he got the first arrest. You know, I don't know if you remember the big jail log.
Oh,
the
yes,
big book.
Yes.
I mean, it was this huge book that everybody that got booked
probably the last generation that got to use that.
Yeah, well, we still used it when I worked there, but it was a brand new book, brand new sheet of paper, brand new jail, very first person, and Mike got to put his name in there.
Really?
And you know, without screwing that story up, this was a well-known individual, or he wasn't well-known then, or maybe he was well-known, but later on he became a figurehead in the community or something. I can't remember exactly how he talked about it. But the other funny story was when it was late at night and the only person that was monitoring the jail was the trustee. So they had a trustee that was staying at the jail that night, and he called Mike from home and said they're fighting upstairs in the jail. I don't know if have you ever been up there in the upper level of the jail, the old jail?
Yes, I've been in the old
it's
jail.
Like a bird cage.
Yeah, the old jail is where I started. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about in the old museum jail.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about
no.
You
need to go up there and look at it. The upstairs is a big room. It's all open. It's like a bird cage, a metal bird cage.
Really?
Right there. Yeah. So that's where they put them. Well, there was 3 or 4 people in there fighting. They was having a knockdown drag out. Well, the trustee called Mike and said they're going to kill each other if somebody don't get up and break them up. So Mike, I think he was chief deputy. Maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, he rolls up there and he gets out and he walks up to the trustee and he unholsters his pistol and gives his pistol to the trustee and he says, "Here, hold on that. I'm not taking that into the jail when I go up there to break him up." So he hands the trustee his pistol and he takes his nightstick and he goes up there and goes to busting heads and gets them broke up. Somebody else, I don't know if it was the sheriff or it was somebody else pulled up. And when they got out, the trustee standing there holding that pistol, he said that whatever his name was, I'll say Otis, he said, "Now Otis, you need to put that pistol down. And he said, well, no, I'm trying. And he said, no, you need to put that pistol down. He said, I'm trying to explain to him. Mike's up there locked in with them inmates trying to get them broke up.
Oh,
He was more concerned with him putting that pistol down. He had so many cool stories, man. I miss that dude every day.
Listen, they would, oh my gosh, they would set your certification on fire on Capitol Hill if a police officer did that these days.
I know,
If
but that
post
was
found out. But I mean, yeah, I mean, and you know, and I'll say this, that was a different time of people.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Reisner did not think one thing about, obviously he knew that trustee, okay, and knew a little bit about it.
Yeah.
He did not think that, I mean, in a sense, that was Mike Reisner's backup, if you think about it, you know. He didn't know, I mean, not a doubt in my mind, he didn't think one thing about handing that pistol to that trustee. I mean, you had different people back then. You had people that were in jail, but just because they was in jail, that didn't mean they wasn't good people.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, can you imagine the sheriff rolling up and him standing there with a pistol and was like, "Where's Mike? He's in that jail cell."
He had so many old stories of the stuff I used to know. But I mean, you're right. That was back in the good old days before everything got complicated. And yeah, I mean, you could come in, you could take care of business. There wasn't any, like, I don't want to say rules, but there wasn't any, you shall make an arrest, or you shall detain this person, or you shall do all this. I mean, you could go fix the problem and leave. Back then, you could go up to a domestic call and chew everybody out and say, now, if I got to come back, everybody's going to jail.
I've heard it before.
Yeah, but those days are over.
But talking about that big book, some of our police officers that have been hired, I don't know. I think we quit using the book. I don't know, about 15, 16 years ago. But I'm talking about another cool thing is I got to write in the same book that my daddy wrote in. From the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The
big jail log?
Technically, it was an arrestee log, but it was a juvenile log. So, where the regular red ones, were about, I don't know, what would you say, 5-6 inches thick? I mean, that was a big book. The juvenile one was about half that size. And I remember, I don't know, it's probably the first or second time that I ever, because technically we don't, quote unquote, arrest juveniles. But whenever you issue somebody a ticket, the state looks at that as an arrest, a non-custodial arrest. So I don't think it was the first time, but like the second or third time that I wrote a juvenile in the book, I was like, there's no telling what's in this book. You tell it looks old. And I flip all the way to the front. And right there, about 2/3 down the page was, Patrolman Ray Grooms. And I was like, what? And then I start flipping through and I start seeing, names like Mike Reisner, Robert White, Butch Newton, Jerry Moore. And I literally sat there with that book and almost read every single page.
I don't know. We probably still have them in I don't know if they'd be in the archives, or we've got a room in the jail that's got a lot of that old stuff in there. I need to go see if I can find that and get a hold of it and keep it.
Yeah.
And that way it doesn't get lost in time, because that's some good stuff,
I think that would make,
when I came on duty back in the early 90s, to tell you how different it is now, when I would come in and relieve either day, because I work nights and days at some point or another, but when I would come in and relieve the other jailer, it was a quick 5-minute, for example, if I was coming in on days and relieving night shift, and they would say, hey, you got 2 in the front drunk tank, you got 1 in the back drunk tank. We still have 3 women and 22 males, and you got 12 in this bullpen and 14 in this bull, or whatever, And as soon as he walked out, I had the jail roster,
Yep.
that had everybody's name and where they were at. And back then, the jail only held, I think there was 34 beds in the jail, in the old jail. And we kept it around in the 20s, and on the weekends, it might be in the mid 20s or high 20s, counting the drunks and the ones in the drunk tank. But that'd be the first thing I do when I came on shift is I would go visibly look at who's in the drunk tank, and then I would make my way back to the women's cells and put my eyes on who was there. And then the max, I think there was 6 or 8 beds in the max cells we would check.
Sounds
and
right.
then the bullpens, and they slept 12 apiece. So I would go back there and put eyes on everybody, and then check the back door that went out to the yard. And then I would come back in, and then I would look and see what time I would start going through the jail log to see what time we called them drunks, what time the drunks come in, because they had to stay 5 hours. And then you had to get them out and see if they could post bail, or you had to change them out into their jail, their jumpsuit, and then put them in the bullpen. They couldn't stay in the drunk tank anymore. And you hoped every one of them could bond out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you didn't want to have to strip search them and go through everything that you had to do to put them in general population or put them in a bullpen. So if it took a little bit, if they needed to make 3 or 4 phone calls.
Oh, absolutely.
To call their uncle to borrow the money, to call the bondsman to get him to come down. So we'd give them a little leadway, hoping they could bond out. Back then you could pay. And it was $245 or $265, and you wouldn't even have to go to court. So if you got brought in on a public intoxication, you stayed your 5 hours. I'd bring them up front and I'd say, well, you can either pay a bondsman, and it was public intoxication was a $250 bond.
Right.
So a bondsman would charge $25. I said, so you can pay a bondsman $25, or you can post a cash bond, which I think was $245. And you don't have to go to court. You don't have to come back. You're done. Or you can get a couple of property owners to sign you bond. That was the 3 ways that you could bail post bond back then. And the majority of them, if they had $245, they just pay that cash.
Right.
And we'd lock that up in the safe, and they'd say sayonara. They'd walk out, and they wouldn't have to come back for court. They can't do that now. No, I asked about that the other day, and
there's been a couple of people that I've arrested in my time that I would have paid $245 just to get them out of the jail.
Just to get them, yeah.
Just to get them gone. And you're talking about making the phone calls. There's been several people that was like, by golly, I'll get a phone call, and it's like, no, buddy, you're fixing to get about 6 phone calls because we want you to go.
We want you to go. I just sitting here telling stories. It was my first day. I started, like I said, in 92, part-time, working weekends. I worked every Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday night in the jail. And I would come in at 6 o'clock, and I would work till, I think, either midnight or 2 with whatever jailer was on. And then they offered me a full-time job, and of course I took it, and I started. And I can remember the very first morning I came in on night shift, and I was relieving Anthony Washburn. He's my lieutenant, just retired earlier this year. And I walked in, and he stood up and he said, you got it, I'm gone. I said, was there anything to pass on? He says, nah, it was quiet. He walked out.
That sounds like Anthony.
I said, okay, all right, it's going to be an easy first day. So I grabbed the jail roster, and I looked, and there was one new entry, and it was a public intoxication, drunk and disorderly. That was the charge back then.
Right.
Drunk and disorderly. You had PI and you had drunk and disorderly. Mm-hmm. Well, this was a drunk and disorderly. And about the time I looked at it and said, I wonder why he didn't mention that. This guy started kicking the drunk tank door so loud.
Oh my God!
It sounded like it was coming off the hinges.
And that is a very unique sound.
Yes.
That door being kicked.
Yeah.
It
would wake the dead. They could hear it on the 3rd floor upstairs. It was so loud. And I'm like, who is this and what is his problem? So I go through the big main door. I go through the main door and I go up to the jail and I look in there and here's this drunk. And I still remember his name. I won't call his name because I don't know whatever happened to him or whatever, but I still remember his name. He had long hair and it was hanging all down in his face. No shirt on, pair of blue jeans, no shoes on, barefooted. All he had on was a pair of blue jeans or a pair of blue jeans. He was a big dude, muscled up dude. And he was standing in the middle of that drunk tank shadowboxing. Saying, come on. And he was gearing up. I cracked the door open and I said, hey, you're going to have to settle down. He come running at the door. So I shut it back and locked it. Because I was 5'8", 135 pounds.
He got time for this.
So he kicked it a few more times and he backed back up and I cracked it open again. I said, I'm not kidding you. You're going to have to settle down. And he come out the door and I shut it again. So I made my rounds back through the jail. Well, one of the people in the max cell, and I think he was in there for murder. I mean, he's a pretty bad dude. He said, who are you? And I said, you know who I am. I've been working up here part time. He said, oh, Myers. And he said, you want to have to do something about that guy.
Yeah.
And I said, I know. He said, no. I said, you need to do something about him. I said, I know. And the people back there in the bullpen were getting mad too.
Yes, sir.
Because he was waking them up, kicking that door. So, and I think it was Terry Beecham. He was a chief deputy, and he come in a little bit early that morning, and he come stop by, and I said, hey, I might need your help with something, chief. And he said, what you got? And about that time, he kicked the door again. He says, who is this idiot? I said, well, look, I mean, I'm going to let you take a look at him. We walked back, and, it had that little bitty window. Right? There used to be a sliding door right there that you
really?
Yeah.
The slide?
Yeah,
Okay.
but they took that out because the jailers would. And there was a jailer, and I can talk about him now because he's dead and gone. Tiny Cummins.
Okay.
Big Tiny Cummins.
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, he would when they were back there acting up, he would say, hey, come up here to the window, I need to talk to you. And they would open it and he'd slide that door, and it was just big enough for him to put his fist through. He'd punch him in the mouth and shut the door. And how hard he hit, he'd knock him out and he wouldn't have to worry about him no more. I went back there and beat him up through that window at that guy, and he was jacked up. I don't know what he was on. I don't know if he'd been, I don't know. Somebody said he was drunk on tequila, but I think he was on something else too because he was twacked out. And he was running around in there and banging his head on the wall, and he was punching the door, and then he would kick it and all that stuff. And Beecham turned around. He said, man, he's a live wire, ain't he? I said, yeah. I said, I think it's going to take both of us. And he said, yeah. He said, let's go get the chains and everything. So we went back up front, and I got the leather belt and the chains and the leg irons and the cuffs and all that. Back then, you could do that. You could even run the leg shackles and the cuffs through that D ring.
Yes, sir.
Put the D ring in the middle of their back. Mm-hmm. And you could literally bow them up. And then, but you can't do that anymore neither. And,
well, it is frowned upon.
But anyway, that guy, he backed away from that door for a minute, and I shoved the key in there and I pulled it open, and here he come, and me and Beecham grabbed this dude, and the fight was on. And I got my arm around his throat enough and started cutting off his wind. And Beecham had his knee on his chest or so. Anyway, we finally got some cuffs on him. Once we got cuffs on him, he quit. He didn't want anything else. He's like, all right, you won. And we said, if you'll just be quiet, for an hour. And he said, if you'll do one thing, you won't hear another word from us. He said, if I can get a mattress. Fine, we went and got him a mattress, throwed it in the floor.
Didn't hear another word out of him.
And he laid down on his side, handcuffed, and when he slept it all off, because they brought him in right at daylight that morning. So, I mean, he still had 4 hours that I had to deal with him, and I was ready to do anything because the judge called down one morning on one beating the door, and the judge called down and said if you don't get that guy off that door, he's disrupting court. He says, I'm going to find you in contempt of court.
Really?
And we said, we'll take care of it. But anyway, we got him a mattress and got him calmed down, But that was my first day, my first full day at the sheriff's office. I never will forget it.
Talking about that, you struck a memory. A brand new deputy, not knowing anything. But back at that time, if something was going on in the jail, and sure, like it is now, but back then, because they only had 2 jailers, we were more apt to have to help in the jail than probably the street deputies are at this point, because your jail is staffed, pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But no, there was this one time, and where this one little old jailer, I ain't gonna mention any names. They had somebody in the drunk tank, and like you said, that whenever they would put their back to that door and mule kick that door, I mean, good grief, I'm sure you could hear it at Herb's Corner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seemed like it shook the whole concrete building. So we were actually booking one in, and this guy starts kicking on the door, and I go back there. I asked the jailer, are we going to do anything about that? He's like, I'm not messing with that. I ain't getting hurt tonight. I was like, well, okay, what's behind door number 3? Obviously, it was a concern. And I'm not going to mention that person's name, but I remember the bullpen yelling at me. And I go back there, I'm like, what's going on? And these guys are like, you better tell him to stop. And I mean, you better tell him. I mean, they were mad. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And finally, this one big old fella that was sitting back in, one of the bullpen cells, he stands up. He said, I tell you what you can do.
Bring him back here.
You open up that door and you let him come back here to us. And you won't hear another thing out of him. And we wasn't able to do that night, but I believed, just as well as I know Jesus loves me, that if we would have sent him back to that bullpen, we'd have probably heard something for about 30 seconds, but we wouldn't have heard nothing out of him for the rest of the night.
I remember one time I had a guy back there that we hog tied him, right, running shackles through. He wiggled his way up on the floor to the drunk tank door so he could kick it. And he kept up the bullpens all night, and when he got out, went back there and uncuffed him, and of course he was cussing the whole time we were uncuffing him, and he was in there on a pretty serious charge, but he was drunk when they brought him in, so I knew he wasn't going to bond out.
Right.
And like you said, the bullpen was like, yeah, let's have him.
Yeah.
And I made sure when I brought him in there, I said, hey, this is the one that's been in the drunk tank all night. Shut the door. And they come out. I don't know if you remember the back cells, and they come walking out of them back cells, and you see the look on that dude's face, like, oh no, And I just walked on up front.
That scene in some of them scary movies where the spirits start coming out of the walls into the room. That's exactly what it looks like.
That's what happened. But everything's automated now, and I tell people all the time, if you've never been in the jail, come take a tour. That's something that
you offer tours?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we implemented that a long time ago. You just have to call ahead, and we try to wait and get a group of 5 or more. But I mean, if I have adults that'll bring their teenagers in that they're causing problems and getting in trouble.
Okay.
And you've seen, what is it, Scared Stiff or Scared Straight or something like that, where they let young kids go in. It's nothing like that, but I'll personally take them on a tour back there and let them see the old jail, which is very intimidating.
It is.
And then the new jail is just as intimidating because it's like a prison.
Right.
But, talking about how everything was on paper and you had a log that you kept up with and you had everybody's name on it, everything now is... So we have these, I don't know, there's some kind of a digital receiver mounted on the walls at each door where the inmates are. So when the COs make their round, they take this thing and they just walk over and they set it in front of the scanner.
Okay.
And it beeps and it logs this CO checked this door at this date at this time. Of course, they still have to go make physical contact with each and every inmate, but it logs it itself. They don't have to walk around with a chart like I had to input, checked them at this time, checked
Right.
it at this time, brought breakfast at this time, got this one, new clothes at this time. I mean, you had to keep up with everything. Now it's all automated.
I
Does it
wonder
all.
if they'd have had that in Jeffrey Epstein's jail, if that would have made a difference.
Oh Lord, let's not get on some kind of a conspiracy
Oh
theory.
my gosh! But no, I didn't know that y'all had implemented that stuff inside the jail. I've seen, first place I seen that was hospitals,
Hmm.
where security is going around, and checkpoint here, checkpoint there. Even security has come a long way after stuff like that was put in place. So
Well, you have to grow with the times, and you have to take steps. Uh, I mean, people hear me talk about TCI all the time. TCI is Tennessee Correctional Institute, and they set all the rules and standards for jails across the state, and you have to follow them. I mean, you have to. I mean, you can choose to if you want to be a sheriff and you want to challenge that stuff. If you want to if you want to get elected, and I wasn't this bad, but I kind of had an idea how I wanted to run the jail when I got elected, and I found out that I couldn't. But and I mean, you could fight it. I mean, the sheriff's got a lot of power, uh, but there's some hills that you don't want to die on, and that's
right,
not going to be a hill that I want to die on.
right,
They set the standards and the policies and the procedures and the laws pertaining to jails. And if you don't follow them, they'll decertify you. And if you get your jail decertified, then you can't keep prisoners in it. That means you got to keep them in different jails across the state, and that costs taxpayers a lot of money.
a lot of money.
So we don't want to do that. Jail's already been decertified once. It got decertified back in, thus the reason why we got the new jail
Okay.
in 2010. Yeah, the jail was decertified. Remember, they had to have the
Oh, yeah.
temporary holding facility out at the
Perry
dump.
County made a lot of
And
money off of
and
us
the other jails,
during that time.
they were trucking inmates all over the place. So it's a big hassle and a headache. But with the times changing, you got to change with them.
Mm-hmm. So this new checkpoint system that y'all got, is that something that the state said you shall,
No,
or that was that something
no,
that you
it's
took
just
upon
steps,
yourself to just
that we took
have a better jail?
to make it, because I mean, anybody that knows anything about this line of work is documentation, documentation, documentation.
Right.
You got to document everything you do. If you have an inmate die in your custody or in your facility, there's a guaranteed lawsuit coming.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to have your steps. You got to take your steps to make sure you're doing the right thing. And we don't want a death in the jail for a lot of different reasons, but the little things that you can implement, that so the taxpayers don't have to foot the bill for a lawsuit,
Right.
But when we go to these conferences in February, there's all kinds of new technology out there for jails, to make it, number one, easier, number two, more transparent, number three, helps you out in some kind of a legal battle if you have something. We've really been fortunate since I've been in office. I think we inherited a lawsuit prior to me getting elected, and then I think we've only had a couple, and they weren't real big ones. So if whatever steps we can take in the jail to keep the inmates safe, number one, and number two, keep from getting sued, then we're going to do it. But yeah, the technology out there is insane. It's insane. There's a machine. I don't know if you remember the COVID pandemic, the epidemic or whatever. There was
I'd like to forget it.
that brought on a whole new array of stuff that you can buy for your jails. I mean, just it's crazy how much stuff's out there. But I like to think our jail is probably in the top as far as the size and the capacity. The way they built it was really good. It's a good jail. It's a good jail, and our numbers right now we're under capacity, so it makes it a little bit easier.
Well,
on
and
the
when we're
staff
under to a point when we're under capacity, you know that saves taxpayer money. But speaking of that, a while back we were talking about that you were trying to put some things together, to maybe be able to house like certain inmates and
federal,
probably get some money off of that
Yeah.
as well. How's that looking?
Well, it's all still we're still in a holding pattern with it. We've done everything that we're supposed to do, and we're just waiting. You know, that 287G program. You know, we was on a holding pattern with that for a while, and we finally got all that reviewed and approved, and we've got all that locked in. I've been waiting on the marshals for a long time to come and do an inspection on the jail to look at possibly holding some federal inmates. But, you know, I've learned patience with this job
Oh yeah,
because I'm a now guy. I like things now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it don't work like that when you're
when you start dealing with entities that have letters, you know, referred to them more often than their name. Yeah, they cut their name shorter because usually the work they do takes longer.
well,
Love them.
Anytime you're dealing with
Love them, but that's the way it is.
You know, a lot of times people ask me, they'll say, "Why does everything move at a snail's pace with government, even local government?" And I say, "It's taxpayer dollars.
Mm-hmm.
You're dealing with taxpayer dollars.
Right.
You screw up, you'll get indicted. You'll definitely get sued. You might get indicted if you screw up with taxpayer dollars. So you got to check, recheck, and double check every time you spend taxpayer dollars. And that's the reason why a lot of times it just moves slow. You know, if I want to buy a new product and put in the jail, there's a procedure in place that you have to follow. You know, I have to. If it's over a certain amount of money, I got to put it out to bid. First, I got to get approval to put it out to bid. Then I got to put it out to bid. And then once the bids come in, then we gotta look at all the bids, and we gotta decide which one, you know. And then there's a contract that we gotta sign, and then you gotta negotiate the contract. And there's a whole lot. It's the reason why it takes long. I've been trying to get the facelift done on the front of the sheriff's office for over a year.
Right. I can remember when you first started talking about it.
And we got the money to do it. And the last I heard was that we were waiting on the blueprints. Once we got the blueprints, then we could put it out to bid or something. I don't know. But I know that jail looks the same that it did when I worked there. That front, not the jail, but the front, the double glass doors and the brick
on the right,
and that balcony that's going to fall down and kill somebody one day if we don't hurry up and get it fixed, because it's got about 4 inches of sag in it, you know, because it's 70. It was built. I mean, I think it opened in 74,
so
74, 75.
52 years old, 51, 52.
And it's time to get it fixed. So I stressed how important it was because of that balcony and the rusted girders and everything else in there, how it was an issue. So they put it at the top of the list to get it fixed. But I'll be glad when it happens, because we've done a lot of work to the inside. I don't know if people watching have seen the inside of the lobby. I mean, we spruced it up, painted it, put a different floor on it, got some stuff in there that makes it look more patriotic and doesn't look as depressing. But when you pull up to the front, it still looks depressing.
Hey, you know what I think would look good? If you went and found that logbook and
put it in a display case.
Put it in a display case and maybe, you know, mounted it on the wall or something, like for the first jail entry. I think that would look good. I think Reisner would be proud.
Oh, it'd be great. I wouldn't even know where to work. I guess I could look at the archives or something. I don't know if we would have anything going back that, but I can get with Curtis Peters at the old jail museum and see if they have any. Yeah, you're right. That'd be pretty cool to put in a display case on out front.
And see, that's just like, you know, a lot of people don't know this. Some of our older hands do. The city had its own jail. And that was a big thing back in the day. Is if Uncle Leroy got arrested, you right off the bat didn't know exactly where he went. He could have went to the county jail, or he could have went to the city police department. And talking about war stories, because unlike the jail, when somebody got arrested back in the day from the city, when they got to the police department, they had about 35, 40 steps they had to go down to the basement of the police department where the jail was. And depending on your attitude, depending on if you walked down or if you were a temporary slinky.
So what was the purpose of those holding cells down there?
Well, I mean, so they, I mean, that was just a jail. No different, no different than the sheriff's office. They just had their own jail.
But nobody stayed in there for very long, did they?
Oh yes. Oh, I mean, well, it's okay. So, it's my understanding that most of the holding offenses that the city kept, could be dealt with by the city judge. And there were a lot of bonds that could be paid, just like you were talking about.
I see what you're saying, like an ordinance violation
like
or
the
something.
PI bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that all police departments had pretty much done away with their jail until the child offender that I was chasing, which I'm not going to give him any glory by calling his name, but the child offender that I was chasing around my wedding time, whenever he got located in northern Alabama, we had to go get him. Rightfully so. You hurt a kid, I don't care. You be in California, we come to get you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it ain't even up for debate. But so me and Rick Bailey jumped in the car and went down there to get him. And I was like, where's the sheriff's office down here? Where's the sheriff's office? And then I found out he wasn't at the sheriff's office. He was at that Alabama City Police Department jail. And I was like, oh my gosh, they've still got one of these down here. And it was, it was, how can I describe? When I say it was like Mayberry, I'm not talking about the town, but I'm talking when you walked into their police department jail, it was like Mayberry because you had like 9 cells, but there was only 2 of them that was occupied.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was quiet. They had like one jailer, and beside the fact that we were picking up somebody that did something atrocious to a child, at the same time, I was like, man, this is pretty neat because this is probably what my daddy got to look at whenever he was booking people.
Well, I'm sure that's
city jail.
Yeah, I don't know when that changed, but there's no more city jails anymore. It's all. I mean, if there's I tell people that's by law, that's one of my mandated responsibilities is to maintain a working jail. You know, for me, my duties and responsibilities include I got to provide security for the courts. I have to operate and maintain a jail, and I have to serve all civil and criminal papers.
Hey, do you get to pick offices still?
What do you mean?
Like back in the day, one of the responsibilities of the sitting sheriff was to designate whose office was where in the courthouse. Do you still get that privilege?
In the courthouse?
Yes, in the courthouse back in the day. Because I can remember one of the former sheriffs I worked for in another county. There was some headbutting, and he moved a certain county individual to the basement. And you're talking about some uproar.
Well, I don't have anything to do with the judicial system, but I have to provide security for the courts and the courthouse.
Because I love Tommy Lee Kidd, but I'm thinking if we moved his office for like 30 days, that would be so funny. That would be so fun. But no, back in the day, the sheriff had that authority.
Well, I mean, that's something to think about. I don't know how that would work. I mean, that'd be pretty. That'd be pretty.
Hey, Tommy, come here.
you could really mess with some people.
Yes, sir.
Some people would really be wanting you to get reelected, and some people would be praying that you didn't get reelected if you had that kind of authority.
So talking about electing, we had a big night Tuesday with politics in the park. Man, we had a pretty good showing. A lot of people came out for that. Yeah, and I'm glad.
Yeah, that's always, and whenever you force any candidate, no matter what office that you're running for, like I said when I spoke, when you make somebody get off the couch and get off their phone and have to get in front of a crowd of people and say a few words, I mean, you can really tell. Because this is my opinion. If you're going to run for an office, you ought to be able to handle stress.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't matter, county commissioner, constable, doesn't matter what local office you're running for, you ought to be able to handle stress. And when you put somebody in a stressful situation, and if they can't perform, to me, that's something you need to be considering when you're casting that vote.
It is, and I was glad again to see how many people came out to listen to what is potentially the future of their local government. And you know, like we've said on here a couple times before, I'm not going to sit here and tell you who you need to vote for, but a shared, you know, mindset like you have. What I will say is, it's very important for people to go out, do your homework, look at what you got, look at what you've had, think about what you want, and make a decision, and then go vote. That is.
You got to vote, and we're less than a week away from the May primary.
Yes.
And I'm telling people, there's a handful of races in this May primary that very well may decide who's going to win in the general election in August.
Absolutely.
So don't think that this May primary isn't important, because it is.
Mhm.
And you know, we need to do better as a county. We need to do better as voters in this community, getting out and voting, because there's 20 something thousand registered voters in this county,
Yep.
and there's about 3,000 people that vote
That's crazy.
in the May primary. So I mean, get out and vote. You got 2 weeks of early voting.
Yes.
What's the address? 702 or 708 Mar Avenue?
Something like that.
Something
I'll
like that.
Google that one.
Where the election office is. You can early vote Monday through Friday, I think, from 8 to 4 there, and then you have your election day, or your primary day, where you can go to your local polls and vote on that. Some people don't like to early vote. Some people like to wait until the day of and go vote at their local polls.
702 Mar Avenue.
702 Mar Avenue, election office. But yeah, you got 2 weeks. There's no excuse. There's no excuse not to vote. And that's just my opinion. And voting is the most patriotic and most important thing you can do as an American citizen. You have no right to gripe, complain about nothing in your community if you're not voting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how you change things. That's how you make a difference, is you vote. Plus you get the cool little red sticker with the state on there that says I voted. And you can take a selfie and put it on Facebook. And
so, you know, I know we're not on here endorsing anybody, but, you know, we did have a gentleman to come down who will be in our governor's race. And listening to him, seemed like a very intelligent guy, sincere. I like that. But one of the things I took away from him was Lawrence County has something special. You know, he sat there all night long and he listened to the candidates that went up to the mic. We had some preachers, we had some politicians, and we had some people that didn't know what they was doing. All right, I liked it. But one of the things I liked about some of the things that he commented on was Lawrence County has something special. And listen, I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, with that being said, Lawrence County's got everything Nashville's got, just on a smaller level. But we're still fortunate enough to be close knit enough where our people, their voice still matters. And one of the biggest ways that you can amplify that voice, go vote.
Yeah,
go vote.
Like I said, you don't have any right to complain about nothing in your community if you're not voting.
Yes, sir.
And he's right. You know, I didn't get to listen to all his stuff. I got pulled in a different direction while he was up there speaking. But I mean, we don't need somebody from out of town to come here and tell us that we got something special.
You're right.
Lawrence County is such a cool little area, and when you talk about local government, I'm telling you, people, you couldn't fathom how some other counties have so many problems with their government. I mean, to hear some of the stories when I go and with the other 94 sheriffs and get together and we sit in the lobby and we talk about how things are going in our communities, and to hear some of the stuff going on across some of the other counties in this state is unreal. And I love being able to say, we don't have none of that. We don't have none of that. Yeah, I mean, we got 18 commissioners. and the county executive, and there's little issues back and forth, but major problems, we don't have none of that. We don't have none of that. I mean, I like to think we got a good working relationship with pretty much everybody else in the county, and as far as government goes in this county, I mean, I'm not bragging on anybody that's in government right now, but we ain't had a tax increase in a really long time, and that's a good thing.
That
We're
is a
about
good
out of
thing.
time. We got anything this weekend that we need to tell? We got breakfast at the West Point
West
Community
End,
Club
yes.
and the Hannibal Community Club.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.